crispy chicken is from a taco place.
This crispy chicken is from a taco place? The taco place? Taco place. It comes in a burrito, too?
From your taco place, it's also a chicken place that's also a taco place.
Check out the all-new Blue and Orange store at the Boise State Hall of Fame. The Blue and Orange store has your best game day gear. We're talking jerseys, hats, bumper stickers, car flags, more than 4,000 hats on the hat wall. If you want the best Boise State gear, make sure you check out the Blue and Orange store online at theblueandorangestore.com or the all-new Blue and Orange store down at the Boise State Allen Noble Hall of Fame.
It's the fall kickoff sale at Lithia Ford of Boise. It's the best time to trade in and trade up to a new Ford truck or SUV with a room to haul your payload or playload. Visit Lithia Ford of Boise, where Ford begins in Idaho.
Bronco fans, the new Boise State trading cards are here, and you can only get them at Jackson's.
Start collecting them today.
Jackson's, let's go!
And final blade of grass. Done. And done. Who knew it'd take 2,007 man-hours to paint 47,962,053 blades of grass? Smells like game day. Whoa, it's not dry yet.
It's time for the Jackson's postgame show on Bronco Nation News. We're breaking down the game with highlights, interviews, analysis, and most importantly, you. Give your thoughts on the game in the ICCU YouTube chat, or leave us a message on the Signature Roofing voice box at speakpipe.com/BNN. The BNN postgame show is presented by Jackson's, where you can get a 99-cent 16-ounce coffee or refill with Let's Go rewards. Need snacks or a cold drink? Visit one of the 300 Jackson's locations today. The title sponsor of Bronco Nation News is RowPaint.com, the official paint and coatings company of Boise State Athletics. For all your painting needs, check out RowPaint.com. BJ Rains will be along shortly from the press box with post-game interviews and analysis. But for now, let's go out to Uncle Bob's Pizza in Meridian and join Nathan Carroll, Chris Van Sickle, and former Bronco Michael Callahan for the Jackson's post-game show on Bronco Nation News.
All right, welcome on in Bronco Nation News here at the post-game show as you're watching interception that sealed this game for Notre Dame. A 28-7 victory for the Irish. Boise State falls to 3-2 on the season. I'm your host, Nathan Carroll, here with Markel Reed, former Boise State cornerback. And Broncos fall 28-7. Just like the spread had it right on the money. If you're a gambler, when you bet matters. If you got it at 20.5, you feel great. If you got it at 21.5, you don't feel as great if you're a Notre Dame better. But welcome on into the chat. Let us know your thoughts. Let us know your opinions. We'll be taking all your questions throughout the postgame show, all your comments. Stick around at the end of the show. Hopefully, there's some weird rules with Notre Dame and how they allow broadcasting stuff. So we're hoping at the end of the show we'll be able to air all of the Spencer Danielson and player interviews. If not, we'll have those live on YouTube immediately after the show. But the goal is to get those done right after the game and get those right in there, right after the postgame show. But Boise State falls 28-7 at Notre Dame. And it's a familiar feeling, Markel. It was a few weeks ago that we sat here on the postgame show here at Uncle Bob's Pizza after losing to USF. I believe it was 7-37. Maybe I don't have the exact score off the top of my head, but another game where it felt like against USF and now against Notre Dame, defense played fairly well.
Yeah.
And offense didn't do enough to really help out a decent performance by the defense. Let's just start here. What are your initial thoughts after the game? What is your big picture first takeaway after seeing that?
Yeah, man. I just think I'm really impressed with the defense. They came out, they battled, they competed, they got stops when they needed to. Again, Notre Dame did put up 28 points. It's something that the defense, their standard, that's probably something that they're going to be frustrated about at the end of the day. But yeah, it definitely feels like the offense fell short today. With them kind of just struggling in the pass game a little bit and struggling a little bit in the run game. I do feel like Mad Dog was off key a little bit with his passing a little bit, but he competed today. But Notre Dame got the best of us today. They were able to pressure our quarterback, make plays in the back end on our receivers. It's tough, following a loss like this in the locker room and everything. It's tough whenever you know that you were in the game. It was a close game going into halftime. Defense was playing well, offense moving the ball. But ultimately, we got to get points in the red zone. We can't turn the ball over like we did going into the half. We could have got points on that drive. But, yeah, it's tough. It's a tough loss. Definitely whenever you feel like you're in the game, but ultimately I'm impressed with the defense, how they competed. But it's tough.
Yeah, and we got a lot of comments rolling in, talking about the game, talking about the performance of Maddox Madsen, of the defense, and I do want to start positive because I agree with you. I think the defense did for the most part play pretty well. You're going to see 28 points. You're going to see, dang near 400 yards, 389 at the end of the day for Notre Dame.
Yeah.
But look, this is one of the most explosive offenses in the country. They put up 24 on Miami, who's one of the best defenses in the country. They put up over 40 on A&M, and they put up 56 the past 2 weeks. So to hold them under 400 yards, to hold them on, to 28 points, I think the defense did enough to win. It wasn't perfect. This wasn't the 2010 Boise State defense, but they played well enough. Like you said, there was a little bit to clean up. Tackling became a little bit of an issue late in the game as well.
Yeah.
But honestly, for the most part, they covered fairly well. There were some open guys, sure, that's going to happen throughout a game, but a lot of times CJ Carr was, kind of scrambling around, trying to buy some extra time. I wouldn't say Boise State necessarily stopped the run game, but Notre Dame had 0.06 EPA per play. For you guys who aren't advanced stats nerd, just over 7 yards per carry. I thought for the most part, outside of the two big explosives that they had, the run game wasn't super consistent for Notre Dame. So I definitely think in that phase of the game, there are some positives. Certainly some things to work on, but definitely some positives. The offense.
Yeah.
The offense is where things really fell apart. And to go into halftime with 7 points, just like against USF, and to finish the game with 7 points, extremely disappointing. And look, this is going to come back to, and we're already seeing it in the comments, this is going to come back to Maddox Madsen, right? There's a lot of comments in here about his performance. People saying that he should get benched. It's not going to happen. We had a former Boise State legend, Quentin McHale, saying Madsen sucks on Twitter. So definitely a polarizing performance. You said yourself you thought he wasn't his best self, but what in particular? I mean, we'll start positive because there's a lot of negative to say, no doubt about it.
Yeah.
Any positives on the offense from today?
Yeah, man. I mean, like I said earlier on the show, I love the way that we kind of brought the fight to them. I do feel like we kind of, had some challenges in the second half with Maddox running out of the pocket, losing leverages on the formations, and trying to find open receivers. If we could step up in the pocket a little bit more and deliver the ball downfield, that would have been something that would have been maybe a different outcome in the game. But I do feel like there was some positive. Chris Marshall had a couple big plays down the field. Latrell Caples, when on target, Latrell Caples was able to make a few catches down the field as well. If we can continue to get those two guys involved in the passing game and get the ball to them down the field, the Broncos have a good stretch down the line in the season. But if we can continue to work on those little things and continue to build on the chemistry between Chris Marshall's and Mad Dog and Latrell Caples and Mad Dog, and get those guys the ball down the field, I think that we will be headed in a good direction.
Yeah, and I'm with you on that. I thought Chris Marshall played fairly well, all things considered. Obviously, you'd prefer to see him not fumble. He gets hit with the OPI. Otherwise, it'd be 5 catches, probably 75 yards, which is great game for his standards. Latrell Caples had the 1 drop, but other than that, I thought played fairly well. But look, Maddox Madsen, he needs to be better. I think just plain and simple, 22 of 37, 215 yards. For those of you guys who follow the gambling column, we got the over on his passing prop, but 4 interceptions, 0 touchdowns. And the interceptions were bad. And it's really hard to – on the first half one, you give him a little bit of a pass on the bend forward one, right? Not even a little bit. You give him a pass on the bend forward one. Bend forward slips, the ball's out, it's an anticipation throw. That's going to happen from time to time. But in the second half, some of these interceptions that are being thrown, it's right to the DBs, passes being overthrown. The last one, he's trying to give Cam Bates a 50-50 ball, but Cam Bates isn't in a spot to win there. He's on the outside. That ball's thrown way too far inside. And look, even on a lot of the plays where there were interceptions, it seemed like he was panicked in the pocket a little bit, normally exceptional at not taking sacks. And too many times tonight, it seemed like if the first read wasn't there and he felt pressure, he was just going down and taking the negative play, including, in a bad spot that forced Boise State to punt when they were in field goal range. So I thought Maddox really struggled, and that's going to be the conversation, I think, for a lot of Bronco Nation coming out of this game is the play of Maddox Madsen. And look, Boise State fans love a quarterback controversy.
Yeah.
I don't think there is one. I think Maddox is going to be the guy until this becomes a continuing trend in every game. We've seen a little bit of it in a few of the bigger games now, but I think at the end of the day, if you want to come down and say Maddox Madsen, he needs to play better. I think that's a fair analysis, because if you look at some of the nitty gritty of this game, the down to down, it's fairly even. Boise State offensive success rate 45%, Notre Dame 46%. So they're getting successful about the same amount of the time. On available yards gained, Boise State gained 54% of their available yards. Notre Dame was 53% of their available yards. So you're talking about, on the pure down-to-down stuff, a lot of this game was even in some ways, but it came down to explosiveness on the offense. I think that's one place that really needs to grow. Boise State's just 2 explosives, a 3% explosive play rate. Really, really not good. They need to find a way to stretch the ball down the field.
Yeah.
And we talked a little bit about this off air, but getting the run game the ball in more creative ways. I don't know if you want to talk about that, but you had some thoughts about just maybe trying to find more creative ways to get the run game going and setting things up.
Yeah, I mean, if we can create on offense a lot of misdirection plays and open up the pass game a little bit and open up the run game a little bit to get the defense confused a little bit, get them on their heels a little bit, I think will be beneficial for our offense. I kind of feel like a lot of the plays that we ran today, the defense knew what we were going to do.
Yeah.
And that's tough. It's tough to win ball games whenever the defense knows you're going to run, or that, and we got to be able to create opportunities and create havoc for the opposing defense to get their eyes misplaced, to kind of get them confused, make them communicate a little bit more pre-snap as well. If we can kind of continue to build on the motion pieces, get Latrell Caples in certain motion situations to get him the ball. I know that we missed one on that key 3rd down or 4th down to Latrell Caples. Maddox missed.
Yeah, on the 4th and 2 there.
Yeah. If we could deliver that ball right away, we're talking about a different outcome of the game. Or at least a closer game. But if we can continue, we need to get Cam Bates the ball a little bit more. We got to get him in open space areas. Malik Sherrod, he's a speed guy. If we can get him in space as well, I think if we just open up our offense a little more, use the width of the field, and get vertical down the field, it'll create explosives for our offense. I feel like we kind of missed on explosions today in creating explosive plays down the field. But, I mean, it's a work in progress, We're still early in the season. I mean, you would love to capitalize on these big games and big opportunities. But ultimately, it's going to come down to building that chemistry in the locker room, coming together, believing in each other, and ultimately just believing in the coach's plan and what they have for you. It will continue to create bigger plays, bigger opportunities, and guys having that confidence to go down the field and make plays on the ball.
Yeah, and I'll preface this by saying I think Nate Potter did a good job. I think he's done a good job as play caller, because time and time again you're seeing open receivers, you're seeing running lanes. But I do agree. You talked about Cam Bates, 2 carries, 17 yards.
Yeah,
right. Like when they've gotten Cam Bates the ball, good things have happened. I've liked the screen game that Nate Potter's dialed up, right? We pretty much didn't see any screen game last year. And Dirk talked about that he didn't think the offensive line was guys who could get on the move and make those blocks. But, I mean, they're setting up screens for Matt Wagner and Malik Sherrod, and I believe had one for Latrell Caples in this game as well. And they're working because you're forcing the defense to play off balance. I totally agree. I think that they need to find a way to get more creative. And sometimes it's not going to work. Sometimes it's going to bite you in the butt. But the reality is, when you're taking 4 sacks for 33 yards, when you're throwing 4 interceptions, your regular down-to-down stuff isn't working enough. It's not explosive enough.
Yeah.
So you've got to take some risks.
Yeah.
You got to find a way to create free yards or create free points. And I think that's the concerning part. My son, he's 3 years old, and he loves to watch old Boise State games.
Yeah.
And so we went back and we were watching old Boise State games, and I was watching, it was the Boise State Mountain West Championship in 2017 against Fresno State.
Okay.
And the reason I bring this up is Boise State's down, I think 7-3, and they dial up a post play where they get a one-on-one and it's a wide open deep shot. And we just aren't seeing those plays even attempted in this offense right now. We're not seeing the deep shots get dialed up. We're not seeing the razzle dazzle, and I keep using that term. I don't know why it keeps coming to my head, but you're not seeing the trickeration. You're not seeing the misdirection. I think it's something that the offense needs to add, especially when Maddox is struggling.
Yeah.
Right. It's one thing if you've got Maddox playing like, honestly, like how CJ Carr played for most of this game, where he's dealing, he's dialed in. It's like, all right, let's just let him take over this game. The Maddox, especially in the second half, starts to not play very well. And I think you need to find some ways to get him going, get him in a groove, get him in a rhythm by something that's going to catch the defense off balance. And I mean, you've played DB, you know how tough it is. Like they throw in a double reverse pass and you thought, oh, it's run play, and all of a sudden your receiver's behind you. Like,
yeah, exactly.
It's tough. It's tough to cover. So what did you think about the offensive line in this game? A lot of comments about the offensive line saying they need to step up their game, that they didn't play very well. What did you think of the offensive line's performance in this game?
Yeah, man, I watched the offensive line throughout the game, and I would like to say they were physical. They gave a clean pocket on a lot of plays, actually, but our receivers weren't open, and that leads to Mad Dog, rolling out the pocket to the right a lot. If we can continue to try to build on that clean pocket and collaborate that with our receivers getting open, I think we have some light for our for our Boise State offense. But yeah, I mean, like I said in the pregame show, Notre Dame has a good front.
Yep.
They're dominant, they're physical, they're big. But that was the challenge that we knew that we were coming into in the game. I know Cage Casey, and Randolph, all those leaders in the offensive line, I know that they prepped, they put in the work and prepped for this game. But, I mean, going against a D line like that we did today, there's going to be challenges. There's going to be ups and downs. There's going to be plays, that aren't perfect. But if we can, I did see a clean pocket a couple times, you know, and if we can kind of deliver the ball or give our receiver a chance to make a play on the ball, possible different outcomes, it's just a lot of rolling out, a lot of throwing out of bounds, or a lot of throwing to the flats, or it's, we got to take chances down the field, that one deep ball to Chris Marshall, it was an OPI, but you see the potential that he has to make a play on the ball. Right. Yeah. And if we can continue to get Chris Marshall the ball down the field, give him those 50-50 chance of making a play on the ball, I think that's a sign of growth. That'll lead us to, putting points up on the board in those big games. And like I said, I'm going to continue to harp on Latrell Caples if we can get him the ball down the field as well, because he's a tremendous playmaker, especially when the ball's in the air. There was a lot of attention on him today, a lot of crossing routes. They're kind of sitting on his inside pocket a little bit. But that's film study from Notre Dame. They did a great job of preparation coming into this game. And they kind of knew that what we wanted to do, what our plan was. We wanted to establish the run game, play action pass. They were kind of dialed on those things. And then once you kind of see those things happening, we want to be able to like we got to adjust on the offensive play calling. We got to create mismatchups, and we got to create down the field plays. We got to be able to take risks. So, we can be nitpicky on our offensive line, but, they had a challenge for them today. And I'd like to say that they gave us opportunities to get first downs and give Maddox a chance to sit in the pocket, in a clean pocket, and throw the ball. And I also think that our run game was pretty solid today. We were moving the ball. They were physical. We were getting first downs. I would love to see Dylan Riley get a few more touches, because whenever he touched the ball, you seen what he was capable of doing. His speed is unmatched at
Only
this point.
explosive run of the game was from Dylan Riley.
If we can continue to, I know that we have that three-headed monster back there for us, Malik Sherrod, Syer Gaines, and Dylan Riley. But I think if we could kind of mix in Dylan Riley a little bit more, he has a lot of potential, and I'm a believer in him for sure.
Absolutely. And just to build on your point about the running game, Boise State actually positive EPA per play when running the football. Of their 16 they had 16 designed running plays that were successful, so a 53% success rate. If you adjust for sacks, ran for about 4.5 yards per carry. I mean, against a good defensive front, Notre Dame, they did the things that you want to see. And I would even say that I felt like the O-line played well. I would have liked to have seen a little bit more from the running backs. Outside of the one big play by Dylan Riley, it was pretty rare that you saw a running back break a tackle or shake a guy today. I thought the offensive line was actually more of a strength for the offense. I would have liked to have seen a little bit more from the running backs in that sense. But at the end of the day, I think the running game was good enough to win the game. You would like to hit an explosive or two, no doubt about it. But realistically, against a team like Notre Dame, we talked about this in the pregame. They've got a pretty stout front, and they have good run fits, and where they've been weak is in the secondary. And so you have to be able to beat them through the air. And to me, it was the passing game that failed. Maddox sacked 4 times. I think some of that's O-line. I think some of that's Maddox. The last sack that he took, Dalen Matoyer actually does a good job of pushing the defensive end wide and forcing him deep. But Maddox just, instead of stepping up into the pocket, bails out deep right into where the defender is, right? So yes, the O-line wasn't perfect in pass pro. Notre Dame has 2 NFL defensive ends. Boubacar Traore at defensive end. I mean, he is a monster. He's going to be a first-round pick. And for the most part, it didn't seem like he was wreaking havoc on the game. I had a couple of big plays, but it wasn't like he was a dominant factor in the game. And it's where I come back to in the pass game. We talked about Madsen. I think Madsen does need to be better. The receivers, I think, need to be better in beating man coverage. Just too many plays where it does seem like, all right, Notre Dame's running cover 1 and no one's open, or at least from what we can see on TV. Maybe, you get the coach's film and it's, there were guys open and Maddox is just missing them. But to me, that's where, if you want to chalk down where was this game lost per se, and there's always little things everyone can do, right? The DB room is going to go back and say, hey, we should have done this, and we could have been better, right? Defensive ends are going to say we could have done this, and been better. But from just a big picture standpoint, the pass game had to be better, and they need to find a way to be more explosive, particularly in the pass game. But let us know what you guys think. So let's get some comments in here and see what all you guys have to say. Looking through here, we got Robert saying we desperately need a top QB from the transfer portal. And I'll say this: you're not going to get a top QB from the transfer portal because the top QBs are going for like $2 or $3 million. Just to be transparent with you, Matt, I don't think Boise State has that kind of money, but that's going to become a talk. Ashley Jones saying hold the QB accountable. Joe saying Madsen could have had like 6 picks today. It's going to be the discussion of the week. And now Maddox can go into Mountain West play and show that he's still a guy who can drive the bus and win a Mountain West championship, which is what we saw last year. Showed that he can do that. And that's where, when you have conversations about Maddox Madsen, I think it's interesting. It's one thing that's come up on the Bronco Nation news boards at 247 Sports. Of course, go subscribe, go check us out in the boards, go talk in there. We would love to hear from you guys. But a lot of the conversation, like on last year's team, a lot of people saying, "Oh, look what Taylor Green's doing." It was like, well, the thing with Maddox is he's good enough that he's not going to lose you games more often than not, and he can get you to that spot. The problem is, I think you see some of these higher level opponents, and can Maddox beat in Oregon, where he struggled last year, a Penn State, where he struggled and had 3 interceptions last year, now Notre Dame, 4 interceptions in this game. You now see 3 games against, big time opponents. Even throw in USF week 1, which I thought was one of Maddox's worst games in his career. There starts to be some concern of, yes, you can win the Mountain West with this guy. Can you accomplish more with him? And that's I'm not going to make you answer that, because I know that he's your teammate, and I don't even want you to put you in a position to potentially throw you under the bus. But you've been in locker rooms. I mean, you were there last year after the loss to Oregon. I mean, you were there in years before after big losses like this, where it does feel like a little bit of a season shifting loss.
Yeah.
Right? What's this locker room look like? They get home tonight. They go home, sleep. I think now they've got Sundays off. So you come into the room on Monday. What's the morale of the team? What's the conversations? And how do you sort of reset yourself to get ready for New Mexico next week?
Yeah, I mean, you go back after a game like this, you go back and watch the film. They're going to see some things on the film where it's like, God, we made some sparks. We had an opportunity to win the game. But then you're also going to see some things on the film that's like, okay, we could have fixed this, or if we would have fit this right, or if we would have played the ball this way. It's going to be those tit for tat type of things. But after a game like this, man, you kind of come together. It's going to be on the leadership guys to kind of hold each other accountable and respond. That's the game of football, after a loss or whatever. How can you respond and move on to the next game? How can you respond and move on to the next opponent? You can't, these games hurt. They're a big game, big opportunity, especially if you're talking about college football playoffs. But the only thing that you can do is focus on the next game and focus on the next week and correct those things, in the walkthroughs, how are we paying attention to detail? It's going to be the little things that take over from this point. After a loss from Oregon, we knew that we can compete. And I kind of seen that today. We're competing with the big boys. Notre Dame, we held them to 28 points. If we would have kind of put up some more points, this is going to be a dogfight, which it still was a dogfight. I seen Notre Dame, they didn't play as well. They have mistakes out there. They had just as many penalties as we did. Yeah. So that just shows you how disruptive our defense was. And being able to come out there and compete and bring the fight to them, which I feel like we did. It's just over time, the mistakes, they started to play a part in the game. But after a game like this, it's all about, get back to the goal. Our goal is to win a Mountain West championship and go from there. And once you win the Mountain West championship, what can we accomplish from there? That's not the end of the road. But going into conference play, it's time to focus on the division. It's time to focus on being 1-0 in the conference. And that's the things that you kind of got to refocus on. Where can we refocus? Where can we get better? What are some things that we're doing in our preparation that we're missing? Where are we misstepping? Where are we going left? How can we get back on track and get back to the right step? Like I said, we had a lot of momentum coming into the game, and losing a game like this can kill some of that momentum. But like I said, you got to go back, get back to Boise, recover, get back in the training room, all those knickknacks that guys may have. Let's get back healthy and be all in, get back together, continue to, build as a team, continue to trust in the coaches. That's going to be a big thing. And if we can continue to trust and believe in each other, we'll eventually see another big team.
Yeah. And I'll say this, part of why the USF loss was so discouraging is because you were playing a top G5 opponent, and it made you think, where does this team stack up within the Mountain West, right? Notre Dame is better than every team in the G5 by a significant margin. They're better than every team that you're going to face in the Mountain West, and you showed, physically speaking, it's not that far off. Now, Boise State is not as good as Notre Dame right now, but you showed you're not that far off, which means going into conference play, I think there is a lot of positive things to build on. And look, I know that you guys are the fans in the chat, which we love you guys in the ICCU chat and getting off takes, some of which we aren't going to share. But I get it. It's frustrating, but hopefully we can be a little bit of a voice of reason and say, all right, take a deep breath. That is Notre Dame, really tough opponent. And there was a lot of positive things to build on.
Yeah.
There is a lot of negative, no doubt about it. Defensively, tackling, still an issue.
Yeah.
Granted, Jeremiah Love, Jadarian Price, maybe the two best running backs in the country. You're not seeing many guys like that, but tackling was an issue. The penalties is one thing that has continued to be an issue for Boise State this season. 13 penalties, 112 yards off of penalties. I mean, look, it's been an issue since game 1 against USF. Is there anything that you can do differently at practices to start to clean up some of those penalty issues? Or at this point, is it just who they are?
No, there's definitely some things that you can implement in practice to kind of, solve this issue that we've been having throughout the season. It's all about, what kind of noise can we create in practice? What kind of energy can we build off the sidelines and create some type of disruption or confusion in practice? Therefore, the offense can operate in a hectic situation. Again, man, I know this is a tough loss, but I'm completely still confident in those Boise State Broncos and in the way they're going to prep, moving forward, addressing some of these problems that we had in the game in the previous games. I definitely feel like they're going to be addressed in practice. There's going to be some adjustments being made. But ultimately, I really do feel still confident in those Broncos and the leadership. They're going to come together. They're going to talk about these things, and they're going to move forward. They're going to watch this one after they watch the film, and they're going to go over some of the plays that they some of the explosive plays that they've given up, so the next team that they play don't capitalize on some of those same plays. But it's ultimately going to be a refocused time. Getting back to the division, getting back to, that 1-0 mentality. And like I said, believing in yourselves.
And we had a comment from the stable. Is SD too nice? Is that an issue as a player? Do you feel like Spencer's too nice and that's an issue with this team winning these big games?
I mean, he's a player's coach, he loves his players, and his approach with the players is definitely different than I've had in the past with previous head coaches. But, we believe in Spencer Danielson. He's a guy that you want to put all your trust in, and because he's had tremendous success taking over the program. I mean, like I said, his approach is going to look totally different than other head coaches in college football. Yes, he's a type of guy that he'll get on you in the film room. He's not going to let himself be seen frustrated or getting on the players or something. He's not letting anything slide.
Right.
If that's a question right now, he's letting players slide and this and that. No, that's not what Coach D is doing. He's going to address it when it's time to address it and get those issues fixed. He is a big film guy, and what can we see on film that we can fix in a team room setting? And I guarantee that he's talking to those guys in the locker room right now, giving them great guidance and great leadership. Coach D is a great coach, and he is going to make those changes for sure.
Yeah, and I'll add this. Spencer's a believer in when there's issues, fix it behind closed doors.
Yeah,
he's not a coach who's going to put his guys on blast. And I think when you're a fan, sometimes it's frustrating to see this. He's this nice guy. Is he even mad that Boise State lost? And yeah, of course he is. And behind closed doors, there's going to be correction. But it's behind closed doors.
Exactly.
Right? So, is Spencer Danielson too nice? Probably not. I don't think that's an issue, guys. But continue to get your comments into the ICCU chat here on the Jackson's post-game show at Uncle Bob's Pizza following Boise State's 28-7 loss to Notre Dame in South Bend, Indiana. They'll be coming back home next Saturday, taking on New Mexico, a frisky New Mexico team, by the way, who looks a lot better than we thought at the start of the season. But one of the big parts of this game was the goal now for Boise State. It's been redefined this season, right? Because for a long time, all throughout the athletic department, it says the goal of Boise State football is to win the conference, win a bowl game, and achieve academic excellence.
Yeah.
And they crossed out the bowl game part and put win a CFP game.
Yeah.
Right. They've elevated the standard. It's no longer just bowl games aren't good enough. We want to win the conference. We want to go to the playoffs. We want to win playoff games. Falling now to 3-2, even if you win out, the chances you make the playoffs at this point are fairly slim, right?
Yeah.
You've got an undefeated Navy team. I may have missed some scores, but I believe Memphis is still undefeated. North Texas is still undefeated. Got a 1-loss James Madison, a 1-loss Tulane. Got a lot of teams in the American with USF knocking off Boise State. All that to say that the odds of making the playoffs now are really slim. Now, knowing that the goal is go to the playoffs, win a playoff game, and now seeing that that's very unlikely. It's not quite impossible yet, but it's very unlikely.
Yeah.
Does the messaging change? Is it still, hey guys, we're going to take care of business, we're going to win the Mountain West and see what happens? Or does it start to change like, hey, we've got to readjust our goals at this point?
No, I think it's more of the first thing. It's all about keeping in mind that 1-0 mentality. You can't really focus on too much of what's going to happen in December. It's October, it's the first week in October, and those are the things. That's where the focus needs to be. That's where the focus needs to be at. It's all about going week in and week out and focusing on your opponent. So if we play New Mexico next week, then that needs to be where all 100% of our focus is. And then you continue to handle business throughout the year, throughout on the schedule, and then you'll see where you land at. The goal is college football playoffs. That's good. That's the new standard at Boise. It's no longer just win a bowl game. College football playoffs is the new standard at Boise, and that's not going to change. But whenever you're 3-2, you fall to two big losses. You don't adjust your mentality. You don't adjust the goal, or you don't address how you approach a winning mentality on a week-to-week basis. But you start to tone in and dial in on what week-to-week looks like. And those are the things that you have to focus on, and what does that look like? How does practice look? How is everybody's energy going into practice? Is it dead or is it high? What do we look like in the training room? What do we look like in the weight room? Are we still attacking the weight room? All those little things play an account on how you go in week-to-week basis on winning games.
And one thing that really interested me is you start, well, I shouldn't say interested me, but you start to see in the comments a lot about bench this guy. Why isn't this guy playing? But one thing that interested me was we saw a little bit more of Sherrod Smith today, who's a JUCO guy. Saw a little bit of Franklin Johnson Jr., who I know you're close with. That's one of your guys.
Uh-huh.
But you start to see a little bit more of some of those young guys repping in. And I think early in the season, a lot of these guys they're picking up a playbook. They're getting used to college football speed. They're getting used to the grind of, all right, I'm in school, but I also got to practice, but I also got to study. I've also got a girlfriend, like trying to figure out life, right? And if you're a freshman, you've never been away from home before. When do you start to see, I know you're a special case. You were playing day one as a true freshman.
Yeah.
So maybe it's not the best perspective, but for a lot of these guys, when do they start to hit their comfort zone and some of these younger guys, like maybe a Quentin Brown or a Sherrod Smith, start to be able to step in and contribute more?
Yeah, man, it's going to be in games like this. You get your opportunity in a big game like this, you got to capitalize. He got in and he got scored on, that's part of growing up in football. You need those reps. You almost need to get scored on to wake up. Did it hurt in the situation that we were in the game? Yes. But just specifically speaking about younger guys and getting better, getting in the playbook, getting that experience, you need experiences like that in those big games. Therefore, you get those butterflies out of there. You get the first game college football experience out the way. So therefore, you're able to move forward with more of a confident mentality. I'm sure that him getting scored on after this game, he's going to be really frustrated, and he's going to approach practice like, hey, I never want to be scored on again. Yeah. I know there was a situation with me my freshman year going against Utah State. I went top 10 on Randy Moss. One of the guys, the tight end, made a one-handed catch on me in the end zone. It was tight defense, and I knew from that point on, I will never, ever let that happen to me again. But, those are it's called a wake-up call,
right?
And those are the type of things that younger guys need to get better. There's only so much film study. It's only so much practice you can do. But game reps are ultimately a different factor on your growth in the program.
Yeah, absolutely. And look, I think we'll start to see more of those guys play as the season continues to go on. We'll see what happens. But ultimately for the Broncos at this point, I haven't plugged in new numbers to the model, but I think the model will probably have them about 1% to 2% chance to make the playoffs. And at this point, it's kind of out of your hands.
Yeah.
Now, I will say this: it's not impossible. A team that you were on when Boise State was 4-5, coming off a loss to Fresno State. My model said they had a 1% chance to win the Mountain West as well, and then you win 3 in a row, and some things break around you. Air Force wins this game, UNLV wins this game, and all of a sudden Boise State's down in Vegas playing for a Mountain West championship. So it is one of those things that you never know. It's certainly possible that a 11-2 Boise State team makes the playoffs. We've seen that before, and we did have a comment here from Pony Boy. There is at least one G5 team that gets a playoff spot. So there's at least one guaranteed in, which we saw. Boise State fans in 2014. That team started 2-2. They had a loss to Ole Miss and a loss to Air Force, and they took care of business the rest of the year, got some help in some other conferences, and they were the team that got to represent the G5 in the playoff. Now, I'll say this, even if you get lucky, if you want any chance to win a game there's a lot of things that have to get cleaned up. The penalties have to get cleaned up.
Definitely.
You have to figure out how to get explosive on offense. And look, you need better games out of Maddox Madsen. I'll say this as well about Maddox Madsen, though, if you want to look for a more positive spin on it, because today was not a good game.
Yeah.
When you have 0 touchdowns, 4 interceptions, it's hard to be a good game.
Yeah.
But he is still a fairly young quarterback. This is probably his 15th game as a starter, somewhere around there. There's a good chance that by the end of this year, we see a lot of growth, a lot of development. And you talked about the learning experience. It's going to be a learning experience for him. He's going to look at this film and say, hey, I need to step up in the pocket more. I need to be more decisive on some of these reads. And I need to know when to give my guys chances and when not to, right?
Yeah.
And clearly, this is the second straight game we've seen him throw one of those sort of back shoulder fade balls to Chris Marshall. I think that's something that the offense should build on.
Yeah, definitely.
Chris Marshall is, you've had to defend him. That's not an easy man to try to cover on a fade route, on a back shoulder throw. I think there's some things to build on, but certainly a lot to build on before we're talking about a team who could win a playoff game.
Yeah, man, I definitely think there's a lot to build on. There's a lot of positivity that was left out there that we can continue to build on. Like I said, like you said, Chris Marshall getting down in the vertical game, giving him the chance to make a play on the ball. Those things are going to be vital for us, creating explosives. And if we can use, I love the play action, but if we can deliver on those play action passes downfield, not kind of to the flat route. Those kind of plays are important, especially on third downs, like the trail. We missed him to the flat. But if we can deliver the ball downfield, I think it'll open up a lot of things for our offense.
Right. Well, and you know this, but if you can get explosive, you can get deep, get vertical, can force a team to get into 2 high shells, which now that opens up your run game. It opens up your short passing game, right? Like so much of football schematically is about how can we make the defense react and do one thing so that then we can then attack them based off the new thing that we're doing. And I do think right now the offense is just a little too stale and a little too one-dimensional, right? They're good in the short passing game. The run game is solid, but they don't have that verticality component and they don't have that misdirection component right now. That's forcing defenses to think, right?
Yeah.
And I'm sure you've had defensive coordinators who talk about this. The last thing you want to do as a defensive player is think.
Yeah.
You want to be able to just go out there, play fast, and just react.
Yeah.
And if you can make a defense think, that's when you can catch them off guard. And it looked like Notre Dame wasn't doing a lot of thinking. They were doing a lot of reacting.
Yeah. Notre Dame was coming downhill on our run fits. They were flying down fast. Yeah, it seemed like Notre Dame kind of knew what was going to happen before the play was hiked. But yeah, Notre Dame's they're a tough defense, man. But we knew that coming into the game. But like you said, we got to be able to get the defense on their heels. We got to get them thinking. We got to get them moving around. We got to get our emotions, and creating space. Those things are going to be vital to our offense in creating explosives. And like you said, we got to be able to establish the run game so things can open up in the pass game as well. So.
Yeah. Got some comments here. Liam says, I don't get why we went away from trick plays. Should have at least done a flea flicker. I agree. I think they need some trickery. I think they need some creativity in the offense. It's one way to break some of the monotony and make yourself a little less one-dimensional. Maui Snowtech says Irby was not the issue this game, though. I know he gave up a couple of curl routes, and to me, I look at that as typically more schematics. When you sit in the off quarters coverage, that's kind of the route that you're willing to give up. But yeah, the pass game, we didn't talk about this. The pass game didn't give up the big one today.
No, yeah. I mean, we definitely in the back end eliminated some explosives. I think the back end played really good, especially Zion Washington and Buck Benefield coming down, making those tackles. Our tackling did kind of we missed a couple tackles in the second half. But that was, our offense getting off the field quickly, our defense having to be on the field a little bit more, and that's kind of what leads to missed tackles. Like you've seen in the first half, our offense was able to drive down the field a little bit more, eat away at that clock a little bit, and our defense comes on the field fresh. But you've seen a little bit more of the defense being on the field in the second half, which led to all those missed tackles. But like I said, I really do think that the back end had a good game. Like you said, when you're sitting in quarters or you're sitting in off coverage or whatever, the game plan is you're willing to give up those dime routes. You don't want to. Their plan is to not get beat deep, and you could kind of see that in how they were playing today. We didn't really let too many ball players get behind our DBs and everything. But yeah, like I said, there's great things to take away from this game. I do think our back end was physical. We made tackles early. But we just got to build on those things.
Yeah, and just to back up that point, Notre Dame had one explosive pass play all game. Without checking, I believe that was probably the touchdown over Sherrod Smith. Or it could have been the slot fade over to.
Oh, yeah. That was
it was probably fade. That one. But anyway, you give up one. It's a 4% rate. You take that all day long. 4%. Exactly. Like if you're giving up 4% explosive plays in the pass game, you're going to win games more often than not.
Definitely.
And that's where we talked about the offense really didn't do enough to help out. So, all right, hey, we're going to hit a quick break real quick here from our sponsors. This is a free show here in the Jackson postgame show. So we'll be back with a quick break, and we'll have a special guest with us when we do come back. So stay tuned and see you in a second.
Bronco fans, the new Boise State trading cards are here, and you can only get them at Jackson's.
Start collecting them today.
Jackson's, let's go!
And final blade of grass. Done. And done. Who knew it'd take 2,007 man-hours to paint 47,962,053 blades of grass? Smells like game day. Whoa, it's not dry yet.
All right, welcome back in Bronco Nation news to the Jackson's postgame show. As I teased before the ad break, we got a special guest with us here joining us. I don't know if he's going to be happy or if he's going to be sad. Boise State alumni, former coach at Notre Dame as well, Mike Sanford. Mike, how are you doing, man?
I'm bummed. I think the opportunity was there today, and you got, yet again, you got I thought a pretty dang good defensive performance from an Eric Chenander, Spencer Danielson defense, and you had the opportunities. They were there. I was impressed. If you take out 3 explosive runs for Notre Dame, that's about 120 yards of real ground game that the Irish had. One of the best running back tandems in college football, and you held CJ Carr in check, which I thought was also just the biggest explosive pass given up today was 24 yards, and like you said, it was the slot fade. The defense acquitted itself better than you needed it to. And man, this was just another opportunity for Boise State offensively to seize a great moment on a national level. And you just didn't do it. And I think it was there for the taking. I really do. And I was very pleased with what I saw from the defense side of the football, and just overall just disappointed for Maddox Madsen in this offense.
Yeah. Now, and what did you see out of the offense? But before you joined us backstage, we were talking a little bit about how there's a need for more explosiveness in the pass game. And there's obviously a lot of things to nitpick with Maddox's performance, but big picture, the need for explosiveness in the pass game. And then we felt like need for some misdirection in the run game. They had the 2 kind of sweet plays to Cam Bates that worked really well, but they kind of went away from it later in the second half. What did you see from the offense? And obviously, when you're putting up 7 points, you're not going to beat many teams. So what more do you feel like you need to see from Boise State's offense going forward?
Well, it's so interesting because Ashton Jeanty, a certified tackle breaker at a level that the NFL hasn't even really seen, you were able to just get into 12 personnel or 11 personnel and run duo. which is basically inside zone or power without the puller, and always just run that thing downhill and get back to the shelf. And that play, frankly, is better without a lot of motion. It's a good play to really get the defense to set. You want those backers to play more of a plug fit, get downhill so you can set your double teams, and then get back to that, what I call the shelf, which is really the cutback area outside the tight end or the Y wing. That right now is just, when you don't have Ashton Genty, and I trust me, I love what I've seen out of, namely, I love Riley. I think that Sattergain's a good player. I love him. I think he's going to be really good. He's still a young back, and so obviously so is Riley. But I think that you just don't have the tackle breaking capabilities to play stationary football against really good teams that can put up on their big boy pads. And so, yeah, that's the thing. I mean, I'd love to see a little bit of, a little fly sweep game. Problem is you don't really have the true fly sweep guy that would scare a defense like Notre Dame to get the play going. Because if you have a true fly sweep player that can scare you on the edges, then it softens up the counter weak, the wide zone weak. Just all the different misdirection opportunities you have. But, I think you when you have a player as good as Ashton Genty, and frankly, I've been there too, with a player as good as Jay Ajayi, man, it does get you pretty comfortable being stationary, and you got to continue to stay cutting edge, especially when you know that player isn't going to be in your backfield.
Yeah, and Mike, I made a face when you mentioned not having the fly sweep guy, because we love Cam Bates. We're talking about him off air, that we just think he's a little ball of explosiveness. And all spring, we saw so much out of him being able to, more than just a fly sweep. We were seeing him in screen game on bubble screens, making big plays. And we haven't seen a lot out of him this year in the games. And that's one guy that we were talking about earlier. We'd like to see him more involved, because we feel like he could be one of those guys who can be some explosiveness for the offense. But
there's got to be a reason, though, right, Nathan? Like, what is the reason? If you're looking for a guy that's got some juice, and Latrell Caples is super dependable, awesome young man, but he's just not that guy that's the kind of that big explosive jitterbug, water bug, whatever you want to call him, that you would bring around in that motion game and flip the ball to him on on one of those dead ball forward passes. What's the downside right now on Bates? Is he hurt? Is there an issue with being able to handle his own package mentally? I don't think so. But these coaches are seeing things that we're not seeing, right? That's always the case. And so I don't quite understand what it might be.
Yeah, of course. And I think that's where we do our best to report what we see, but we don't know, is a guy messing up his packages? Is he a package guy because he doesn't have the full playbook yet? Or maybe it is just a matter of, maybe the full route tree isn't there for him. I don't know. We can take a moment to talk, I guess, briefly. You played against Cam Bates. What kind of player is he? And I know you said you'd like to see him get a little bit more opportunity, but what have you seen from him going up against him in practice?
Yeah, Cam Bates is definitely our guy that takes the roof off the top, or the top off the roof, however you want to say it. But Cam Bates, he definitely needs to be involved a little bit more than what he is right now. I have no doubt in the capability that Cam Bates brings to the field. I don't know why he's not getting as many touches, because last year he was definitely a guy that would show a lot of spark and create a lot of momentum for our offense to get down the field a little bit more. So I would love to see a lot more deep shots taken to him as well. That small jittery guy, he may not be as right off the line. We've seen him kind of get jammed up a little bit on that one play, but if we can get him in open space, he's definitely a playmaker.
Yeah.
How tall is Cam? Like, real talk tall. If you were to get an NFL measuring tape on him, what would his height be?
Yeah, he's smaller for sure. I would say
5'7",
5'9".
I'm thinking a little bit more along the lines of 5'7", 5'8".
Yeah. So he's Shane Williams Rhodes, really. I know that's a name from a long time ago, but a guy that you can use. And while he might not be the dependable every down slot receiver that you have right now in Latrell Caples, and I want to make it really clear, I love Latrell Caples as a player. I think and it's almost, I wonder if his dependability, his leadership, his intellectual capacity as a guy that helps others get lined up around him, I wonder if that's almost to the detriment of Cam, because that F position, I think in the Boise State offense called the H, NFL, a lot of people call it the F or the zebra. if you do have that guy that's super dependable, you almost don't really want to take him off the field ever. And so I wonder if that, Cam Bates is kind of falling victim to that, which is the dependability of a guy like Latrell Caples. Let's just call it like it is. Chris Marshall. Marshall's the type of player that it seems like he runs really hot or really cold. Even today, it looked like it just looked like he was kind of out there doing some weird things, some good things, some wild things, some terrible things. The ball's in harm's way. Well, Latrell's he's the every down type player. And so I'm just wondering, is there a world that exists where Latrell can get knocked outside and all of a sudden you can play with more Cam Bates in the slot?
Yeah, and I think that'll be the challenge for Nate Potter going forward, right? You want to get all of your best guys out on the field. And the reality is, it's not like any of the three guys ahead of him are bad, right? Chris Marshall, like you said, he runs hot and cold, but when it's hot,
super hot.
It looks really good.
Yeah.
Latrell Caples so dependable, and Ben Ford's been solid,
Great
steady
player.
receiver as well.
Love Ben Ford.
So I think it's probably a balance of, there's guys ahead of him. He's probably filling a particular role. And I think sometimes what's a little underappreciated with wide receivers is that it is three separate positions. And some guys have the ability to play all three spots. So you can just, hey, Latrell Caples, probably a guy like that. We can throw him anywhere and he's going to thrive. Some guys, it takes some time to pick up the playbook. Cam Bates is a true sophomore, right? He played 100 snaps last year. So there's not all that experience quite yet. I think in time he'll be a guy, and he's just, again, he's so explosive. It seems like every time he touches the ball, he's making someone miss. He's getting positive yards. So he's just a guy, when you've got an explosiveness issue, I'd love to see him. But you know it, Coach. There's always stuff going on behind the scenes that even in practice we don't always see. I did want to get your thoughts, though, on Maddox Matz and his performance today. Obviously the stat line's not good. Anytime you're 0 touchdowns, 4 interceptions, it's not a great performance. Talked a little bit about how at times it felt like he was sometimes bailing on pockets too early, sometimes trying to do too much. What did you see from Maddox today, and what did you think of his performance?
Well, to be on the positive side here, the thing that I thought for being in that environment, and I've coached and been a ball boy, in that same stadium for, I think a total of 4 years combined between being an offense coordinator there and then my dad being the quarterback coach. That's a big environment. It's bigger than you realize because of the historical perspective of Notre Dame as a school. And then it ends up kind of sneaking up on you. You think it's just this historic old building that's going to be nice and quiet. The student section's pretty rowdy, and there's a lot of Irish Catholics that enjoy a cold beverage from time to time. So it's pretty greased up, lubed up crowd, especially for a game against a team like Boise State that has a lot of respect. So I thought Maddox Matson showed toughness, which is the number one characteristic of the quarterback at Boise State as long as I've been around the program, back in 2000, dead even 2000, playing for Dirk and for Mark Helfrich and then Chris Peterson. Toughness is number one, and I saw toughness today. Maddox Matson, he is a tough son of a gun. I love his toughness. Now, today was a day where it felt like the game got a little big for him. It felt like there was some predetermined, like I'm going to go here with the football. And that's a common occurrence of quarterbacks when they do feel like they are not enough in their own minds, that they sometimes just have to try to will things to happen in order to get their throws where they need to get them. But 4 interceptions, zero touchdowns. Disappointing. Where I'm really disappointed this season is I look at the quarter century of Boise State football since I've really been intimately following this program. I was recruited in 1999, played in 2000. This was one of the first times that I've seen 2 games in a season where you don't just have you didn't have just one stinker offensively, you had 2. And so now you're at, what is this? Was this game 6?
Game 5. 3 and
Game
2.
5. So in 5 games, you've had 2 games where you scored 7 points. Am I right in saying that was South Florida 7?
Correct.
That's unacceptable for Boise State standards. And when you watch the game that Notre Dame played against Texas A&M, who's good but they're not world beaters, guys. If we're talking about college football playoffs and that being the goal for this team, scoring 7 points against Notre Dame when Texas A&M scored felt like a 75. I think it ended up being like 40. What was it? 45, 48,
41, I think.
41. It's unacceptable. It's unacceptable for this team. It's unacceptable for this program. And you know what? I'm a coach. And when I've coached, even last night, I lost a game, right? We're held to a standard. I'm held by my own little high school community to a standard. That's part of coaching. It is what it is. And when you don't score enough points, guess what? People are going to be upset. And here, I'm an alum. I'm an analyst. I love this team. I love my alma mater. I'm upset. 7 points in a game where your defense, I think, they had their big stick. They had their driver working today in that club, the bag of golf clubs. And to score 7 points it's below the standard. And frankly, the reality of it all right now is that I believe that Boise State is completely out of the college football playoff picture. I believe it's to be true.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't see how anybody could say that team deserves to be in the college football playoffs because the Mountain West Conference has zero respect nationally right now. Zero. And the future Pac-12, zero respect right now nationally. In fact, I actually had one of my friends text me during the game asking, the original question about Maddox Madsen, just to hear the national perspective, not my perspective. The national perspective right now is that the text was from a national broadcaster that does major games. And he texted me and said, Maddox Madsen, without Ashton Genty by his side, fairly pedestrian. And that's kind of what it showed to be.
Yeah, and I think you could even say to an extent, going back to last year, the Oregon game wasn't great. The Penn State game in the Fiesta Bowl wasn't great. Like, it might just be a matter of great Mountain West quarterback, but when you get that better competition, it doesn't always fare. And just to build on what you were saying, the disappointment of having two stinkers, it's not just that it's two offensive stinkers. It's that you sort of failed in the same way. The issues with USF was you moved the ball fairly well, but lots of penalties, couldn't convert on money downs, turnover issues. That game was fumbling. This game's interceptions, and no explosive passing game to speak of, right? It's all dink and dunk. Notre Dame keeping everything in front of them and sort of just letting you beat yourselves. So it's not just that it was two bad games and things look different. It was there seemed to be a lack of growth between those two games because you were getting beaten so many of the same ways. And so, yeah, I'm with you. I think it's disappointing. Now, with all that said, spin that going forwards. What are some positive things that you saw, or maybe even some negatives that you think, that was an issue today, but that's an easy fix, and this offense should be fine going forwards?
I mean, my biggest one is what I've been talking about all day is that I thought the defense against one of the hottest offenses right now in college football, man, it stood tall. Like, how many times have Boise State fans talked about how awful the secondary is? I thought today the secondary was really good. I thought the tackling was above the line against a team like Notre Dame. I think you stood tall defensively. So, as it relates to the Mountain West Conference season, which is real and still ahead of you, and I think you do have to adjust the goalposts right now. You have to move them a bit. You have to start thinking about Mountain West Conference Championship because guess what? San Diego State is the one team that looks like the real deal. UNLV starting to play like the real deal. So you got to move the goalposts and think less about college football playoffs right now and think more about how can you win the Mountain West Championship. So that defense gives you a lot of optimism to be able to win a Mountain West Championship. But it's not going to be a given. I'm going to tell you the way the offense played today. That's not a given. I watched the San Diego State team absolutely shut out. I mean, just completely erase some teams that necessarily you didn't think were going to happen. So I think the other thing that was a positive to take away from it was that you did what you did offensively without, I think, the best player on your offense personally is Matt Lauder. And when I saw him on the injury report, I was like, I don't love it. So hopefully Matt Lauder is going to be back soon. He is such a critical part to what you do. And the Lauder-Wagner combination is something that I think is a pretty dynamic duo of tight ends. And that's special when you have two guys like that. So, to say a positive is that Matt Lauder didn't play in a 28-7 loss where he only scored 7 points. It's kind of stupid, but I do think that when he does come back and he is healthy, that's a huge shot in the arm for this offense.
Yeah. And I think where his absence was probably most felt was Maddox is normally so good on that play action, rolling to his right, dump it underneath to Lauder. And that play just wasn't working today, right? That spider 2-wide banana, as John Gruden calls it, right? Like, Lauder just has a speed, and I think he's got an ability to find like the soft spot in those zones or settle down where Maddox needs that maybe that's not quite there with Wagner. And I know that when we were watching, Markel, you pointed out a few times, you're like, man, we keep running that play action. It's just not working today.
Yeah.
It's just not there. And I think maybe that's where, again, if you want to put a positive spin on it, when Lauder does get back, assuming he gets back, we have no word on what the injury is. Yeah. He didn't seem to get hurt during the game last week, so it's either something during the week or pick something up in the game that,
might have like mono. You never know. Like, that's the craziest thing to say, but yeah, who knows?
Yeah. So you made a comment though about it's not quite working today. And look, I think Matt Wagner is a very good tight end. I think Luke Voorhees actually played well in a lot of his run block scheme, but he's not the receiver that Lauder is.
Yeah. I mean, I just don't think that our run game was, successful enough for that play action pass to be successful. I mean, that's something that Boise State Broncos do. We love the run game and run and play action off of it. But I would have liked to seen us open up the offense a little bit more, make plays down the field, give our receivers more of a chance to make a difference in this game.
Yeah. Well, Mr. Mike Sanford, we've got an interview with Spencer Danielson coming up. But one last comment, one last takeaway from this game. How are you feeling about Boise State and this team moving forwards?
Yeah, disappointed. I think you had one big group of 5 showdown against South Florida, and you failed the test, and then another showdown against one of the most historic programs in all of college football. And what I'm disappointed about, and I predicted Boise State to be in this thing into the deep waters. The defense showed that it could have been into this game, into the deep waters, and I'm disappointed. I am. And is that being negative? No, I think that Boise State as a program is the type of program that should compete against the Notre Dames, especially what I think is going to be a down Notre Dame year where they already have 2 losses. That was a 2-2 team today. And granted, their losses were against Miami and Texas A&M, but I think that's a team that Boise State, when Boise State is optimized, I think that's a game that you can win when your defense has their A game. You didn't get it done, but you know what? You lick your wounds, you respond, and I think you get ready for the scorching hot New Mexico Lobos, who I think actually took a loss last night, if I'm mistaken. But you got to be ready because Jason Eck is going to be coming in with that's the next game. Am I right?
Yeah,
New Mexico.
On New Mexico.
Jason Eck is going to have a massive chip on his shoulder that Spencer Danielson is the head coach at Boise State, not Jason Eck. So I'm just telling you, be ready for that game against the Lobos.
Yeah, they've been frisky this year. Obviously, beat UCLA, who just knocked off Penn State, and then
wild game.
Yeah, had half an eye on it, and crazy. And then obviously, they've looked good. Took the loss last night, but they're going to be tricky. They're going to have some stuff dialed up. So Boise State will definitely have to be.
I'll tell you what I did not, Nathan Carroll. I did not have on my Saturday, October 4th bingo card is that I would be turning off the Boise State game to watch the UCLA Penn State game instead of so that in and of itself is extremely disappointing because the Boise State game was out of reach and somehow, some way UCLA beat Penn State. Don't understand it.
As a 25.5-point favorite. That's crazy. You don't see that happen. Well, Mike, thanks for joining us. Thanks for your insight. Best of luck to Valor Christian, right? I've got that right?
Yes, sir. Valor Christian.
Up in the program there. Not a Vandy hat. That's a Valor Christian hat. So.
Yeah, it's navy blue. It's not Vandal. It's not black. I promise you. Navy blue and baby blue, Columbia blue, as we call it, is our colors. So, so took a tough loss last night, but you know what? We'll be back just like Boise State will too.
Fantastic. Right. Thanks for joining us, Mike. Appreciate your insight.
Yeah, appreciate Nathan. Appreciate you too, Markel. Great seeing a fellow Boise State football alum, man. Keep doing the great work.
Nice meeting you. Thank you.
Good to meet you too.
All right. Thanks again to Mike Sanford. We have interviews with Spencer Danielson coming up. Before we get there, Markel, I'm going to get one last thought for you before we let you go. Final takeaways from this game, things you want to see going forward, things that stuck with you out of this one.
Yeah, man, it's a disappointing loss, though. It hurts. It hurts as a fellow Bronco. But I think there's a lot of things to look forward to for the Boise State Broncos moving forward. There's a lot of opportunity left on our schedule. Let's just go win the Mountain West right now. That's the focus. Let's go focus on New Mexico. Let's go correct the mistakes that happened during the game today, and let's not harp on it too long. Let's go get better for today, tomorrow, and leading into the prep for New Mexico, and let's move forward along with that. So I'm excited for the Boise State Broncos on what they have moving forward. The Mountain West Championship is still up for grabs right now, and let's focus on division play, and then we will let after that division play we go to the Mountain West Championship, win it, and we'll see what happens from there.
Yeah, and the Broncos are 1-0. Already got a good start with the win over Air Force at Air Force. It's going to be one of your tougher games in Mountain West play. So, Markel Reed, hey, thanks so much for joining us.
Yes, sir.
It's been a blast today. Bronco Nation, stick around. We're going to kick it to Spencer Danielson and get his post-game press conference thoughts immediately after a 28-7 loss to Notre Dame.
Well, appreciate you guys' time. Obviously, after a game like that hurts, we got to find a way to win those games. But first and foremost for me always, man, thank you, Jesus, for an opportunity to coach this team, man. I'm so confident in this team, love this team, and had every opportunity to win. And that's what everybody says after they lose the game, but I really did feel that way. I'm proud of how our team battled tonight. I feel way different than after the loss to game 1 of the season against South Florida, where I felt like we didn't at times. Tonight, I really felt like we battled. I felt like our team never quit. Even though some, obviously some self-inflicted stuff happened in regards to penalties or, mistakes on our end that we got to fix. But I'm proud of our guys battling. I'm proud of them never quitting. Proud of them, even on the sideline, man, there was no pointing finger. They didn't see anybody start, quitting. They glued together. I believe where there's unity, God commands a blessing. Our team stay close. We just got to find a way to execute better. I mean, in a game, when you have 4 turnovers, I don't care who you're playing, especially a top 10 team like Notre Dame, you're not gonna win. And so we got to protect the football. We moved the football really well offensively today, or we had our moments, but we can't have penalties that put us behind the sticks. We got to find a way to get open in man coverage more consistently, and we got to make sure we don't turn the ball over. Defensively, we just gave up too many explosive runs, and it came down to tackling. Sometimes up front we were off. Sometimes our defensive line got reached, and linebackers weren't fast enough to fit. We got to get off blocks at linebacker, and we got to do a better job tackling. There were times in the game we did a good job. We knew these 2 tailbacks were really good. But we got to tackle better. I know we've talked about that a lot. We got to continue to find ways to get ball carriers on the ground. And there's a couple critical third downs on defense that we got to make sure we get off the field, especially with an explosive offense. I mean, that's one of the top offenses in the country. And we were doing a good job. We got to get off the field on third down. So a lot of things that, as a coach, frustrate me just in regards to how a play ended, if it's either a lack of fundamentals, a lack of technique, but I am proud of how our team battled. And at Boise State, we got to find a way to win these games, period, end of story. And we haven't, and that's on me. And I got to look at it to see what are we missing, how can we coach it better, how can we teach it better. We got to be problem solvers because we got to find a way to win these games. You don't come out here for a trip. We don't come out here to enjoy the scenery. We come out here to win, and we didn't. And we had every right to. We didn't. Hats off to Notre Dame, very well coached. Coach Freeman's done a phenomenal job with his team. And I know they're going to be really good and always will be really good because they got the right guy at the helm. So, like I said, proud of how our guys battle. We didn't do enough to win tonight, and that's on me. It's on our staff to find ways to get it fixed.
You mentioned the turnovers, the penalties, there were missed tackles. I know you haven't looked at the film yet, but just based on what you see, what do you guys have to do to fix those?
Yeah, we had a couple of self-inflicted penalties today, right? Some of the holdings and we had an offensive PI that those are bang plays. I got to look at the film to see what we're missing, maybe teaching wise, but I can live in that space. We got to find a way to not have those happen. But I think we were even in penalties both sides. I think Notre Dame had theirs, we had ours. But what hurts you is false start penalty, get you behind the stick, some procedure penalties that can't happen. And on the flip side, I mean, we put ourselves in tough situations. That's where a lot of these turnovers came up, right? We got to find a way to win in man coverage. We have to. And teams that got really good secondary like Notre Dame does, we got to find a way to win in man coverage, and we got to be consistent with running the football, and we didn't tonight. And that's what happened. So you can get yards, but if you turn the ball over and you shoot yourself in the foot with penalties, you're not going to be able to score points. And against a really good team like Notre Dame, we got to use every possession.
Just with the penalties, Spencer. I mean, it feels like last year we weren't talking about games with 10+ penalties. It was the Air Force game today. Do you know where that's coming from?
Yeah, obviously it's something we're missing as coaches, and it's something we got to continue to look at. And just like anything, if we were to win this game, which I believe coming into this we were, I'm going to give Jesus all the glory, give our coaches, our players. When we lose, it's on me. It's on me. And I don't say that lightly. I don't say this like that's the nice thing to say. I believe that, obviously, for me and how we practice, how we teach. That's what we control as coaches. By the time you get to the game, we're not going to overcoach them. It's time to go cut it loose because you're going to be who you are in the game. And so we got to see in practice and what we're teaching. Obviously, it's too many penalties. We lost the game tonight because we turned the ball over and we didn't get off the field on some critical third downs. And that's why we lost the game. Penalties are big. We can't – now, penalties turned into turnovers because we're now on fourth downs and third and longs, and that's where you start being careless with the football a little bit, and that's what can clean that up.
Matt, you talked about the turnovers. What about Notre Dame's secondary is so good and gave you guys some problems today?
Yeah, they did a really good job in their man coverage. It's hard for even with some shifts, some motions. They did a good job locking on. We didn't have a lot of guys running free. And hats off to their defensive scheme. They did a good job. And we were able to move the ball a little bit. And then good job by the time we got open in man coverage, their front was able to get home. And great plan by Coach Ash, Coach Freeman. I mean, they did a really good job.
They have 4 sacks today, too.
Yeah.
Was the pass rush and kind of the more increased blitzing something that you guys were expecting coming in?
Yeah, I mean they had their switch ups for us, which every good team will, and they did a good job of their defensive plan. But it's a trickle down effect, right? If no one's open downfield, that's going to give time for the rush to get home, and they worked really well together as a defense.
With Madsen, how do you evaluate his play? And some of those interceptions just seem like ill-advised throws or bad throws.
Yeah, I got to look at it, BJ. I mean, obviously, the easy answer is he's got to make the right throw, but without watching the film, me, different than our coordinators, I don't get time to get on the iPad and see what's going on. The second one side of the ball is off the field, I'm right onto the next side of the ball. So I'm going to have to watch the film, BJ. Obviously, I know there's some throws that Maddox missed tonight. There's some turnovers that we can't have, but we're not in good situations, right? And that's holistic. Coaching, players, we can't be in third and long all the time, right? That's hats off to Notre Dame's defense and us not executing when we need to on first and second down. So got to watch the film to really evaluate it. I know Maddox is a competitor. He's hard on himself. I know he's beat himself up, but this is a team. I mean, we didn't lose the game tonight because Maddox Madsen had some interceptions. We lost the game because we lost as a team. And there's going to be things in all 3 phases. I mean, you look at the first punt of the game. We're running down on punt, and we get a fair catch. We start to slow down at gunner, and that ball falls on the ground. Those are plays we got to find a way to win. We didn't tonight. So long-winded answer, BJ. We got to look at the film, and obviously where there's interceptions in the game, the first finger is going to get pointed at the starting quarterback. We got to watch the film, but either way, we got to find a way to take care of the football, and we just got to be more efficient on first and second down.
The Latrell Capel's penalty there, when you guys were moving the ball, maybe you could tie the game there to start the third quarter. I mean, I saw you talking to the ref. I mean, I know you haven't seen the film, but that's a tough one.
Yeah, from my vantage point, didn't look like a foul. Obviously, they called it the way they need to, and that's a good officiating crew. So we'll look at the film. It is what it is. I mean, there's obviously those are huge moments, momentum swings, but as a team, good teams find a way to overcome those, and we did tonight.
Coach, Madsen, he had a great, seemed like the first half he was ups and then there were some downs there. Coming off the sideline, we saw his facial expressions. What do you tell your starting quarterback after a night like that?
He's a competitor. I mean, that's the thing about however a game goes, the first finger gets pointed at the head coach, as it should, and then usually people try and nitpick the starting quarterback, right? I don't care where you're at, who you are, that's football in general. Maddox Madsen's a warrior. I will go to war with Maddox Madsen any day of the week, and there's not a quarterback in the country that I would like to be the quarterback of our team than Maddox Madsen. Period, end of story. We'll watch the film and find ways for him to continue to grow.
Just with the offense, you said something situational. Do you think some of the issues with the passing game is just not being able to get the running game going as well?
It's both sides, yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's much easier to throw the football when you're able to run efficiently, right? When you're stopping the run, you're playing 2nd and 10, 3rd and 10. Then it's time for the question about the pass rush. Then it's time for Notre Dame to pin their ears back and go get the quarterback, right? And then that gives time for the rush to get home, and then we got to win in man coverage. So it's a trickle-down effect. If I can't win first down, if we can't establish a run game, which we really didn't tonight, it's going to be hard for us to win in the pass game. We are built to run the football. We are built to wear a defense down and then pick our shots. We weren't able to pick our shots tonight, and that's hats off to Notre Dame.
You guys obviously took the lead there about 4 minutes ago, and then within 3 plays, they're already down inside the 30.
Yep.
I mean, just the explosive plays. You mentioned the tackling, but how big was that touchdown by them late in the half?
Huge. I mean, they won the middle 8. And that's a huge stat in college football, right? And we got to find a way to make sure it doesn't happen. We get the momentum back, up 1 point. Great job by our team, find a way to claw back, getting ready to go into halftime, and they moved down the field effortlessly, right? Missed tackles. There was a big 3rd and long that we missed too. Like, you can't lose those downs, and we did tonight. So we got to look at it and see, okay, what are we missing? Is it lack of fundamentals and technique? I know tackling is going to show up in a major way, and that's something, guys, we're going to continue to work and continue to find better ways to do it. And I know I'm going to probably get asked on Monday's conference, you keep bringing up tackling, and I'm going to bring it up again because we got to continue to find ways to do it better. And I know we practice it, but we got to find a way. What are we missing? I don't know. We're going to look at it and find a way. We're problem solvers, and I'm excited to get to work on it.
How was it tough to run the ball tonight? How much does it also take some patience at time, I guess? Maybe? You guys were also, mean, juggling a couple of interior offensive linemen pretty much throughout the entire game, too.
Yeah, we had some guys banged up in the interior line, so we had to kind of rotate. But I believe in our offensive front. I believe in our schemes to run the football. Like, that's a mentality for us. We're never going to go into a game and be like, yeah, this is not a game we need to run the football. And that is a mentality of Boise State football. And we couldn't do it tonight, right? And is there some things schematically, play call? No question, right? We'll look at that and see kind of where we're missing it. But we got to find a way to make sure we run the football. It's not 2nd and 11, right? That's a hard spot to be in offensively. Once again, hats off to Notre Dame. We'll look at the film, but we have to establish a run game to be successful. And that's not different at Boise State than anywhere else. Notre Dame established a run game, right? They established a run game early on in the game, and then that's hard as a defensive play caller to stop now because now you're second-guessing yourself.
PJ, go ahead. Big picture-wise, I mean, it's a non-conference game. I know you obviously wanted to win. It would have been a lot of things for you, but to go back into conference play now and be 1-0 there and still have that goal ahead of you, I guess how do you got kind of refocus here for what's ahead?
Yeah, BJ, I mean, obviously it's always the next game. No matter if we won this game, it'd still be our focus would be on New Mexico, which is a huge league opponent, and they played really, really well. But this one hurts. I mean, like I said, I don't run from the fact that we have to find a way to win these football games, and I believe we will. We didn't this year. We didn't last year, and that's on me. And there's no excuse. It's not. And I've heard all the excuses. Well, no. There's 11 dudes on the field. We got 11 guys. We got to find a way to win. We didn't, and that's on me. And I'm excited to find a way to get it fixed because we got to find a way to win this football games. Bronco Nation travels so well. I mean, I got pictures of the Boise airport yesterday packed coming to see the Broncos in South Bend. They didn't come out here just for us to try. They came out here to see us win, and we didn't. Once again, hats off to Notre Dame. It's a really good football team, but we got to be better.
Jay, last one.
All right, there you have it. Spencer Danielson, his comments post-game after Boise State's 28-7 defeat to Notre Dame. And I'm sure a lot of you guys have opinions about some of that and some of what he said. Talked a lot about the penalties. This was the most penalties for a Boise State team since 2004. Talked about Maddox Madsen. Said there's no one in the country he'd rather have, which, look, I get it. It's not what you want to hear. And look, I'll say this. We can be honest. It's probably not really true. If you asked him deep down, hey, would you rather have Garrett Nussmeier? Would you rather have Lenora Sellers? If those guys were in the portal, yeah, of course. But he's going to say that he's going to ride with his guys. And like he said, he's going to see the film. And I think a lot of times these coaches, they want to see what's in the film before they start making a bunch of comments. But let's go through some of your comments here. Grant Teton says, I didn't see Penn State loss. I guess it truly can be worse. Yeah, Penn State lost as 25-point favorites to UCLA. Not good. It definitely could be worse compared to losing, as a 21-point dog. Loved hearing how the announcers say how disciplined the team was, and then they commit the most penalties. Yeah. And look, I'll say this. I think part of that's Boise State. I think part of that was the officiating. I mean, both teams had 13 penalties. Clearly, the officials were eager to be involved in the game. Scott saying he's got to take a break from this. Hearing the same thing every week. Yeah, look, it's coach speak. It is what it is. And the reality is that's probably what you're going to get after a loss like this. He's not going to come out and put players on blast, even though that's what you guys want to hear. Moving up here, Linda saying, I love Coach D, but this is bad. Yeah, not some Linda also saying Madsen played horrible. You have to hold him accountable. Grant Teton saying this is literally an Avalos press conference minus the yelling at Jordan. Yeah, Spencer's a lot nicer to the media is the sense I get. I wasn't around for the Andy Avalos era, but I get the sense that Spencer's a lot kinder to us in the media, so we appreciate that. Going up a little further, got Linda saying, oh, geez, MM Love Fest. Yeah, look, and that's at the end of the day, again, where I'll defend Spencer too is there's a way to respond to every player, right? Some guys need tough love. Some guys want to be yelled at, and some guys need maybe a little push forwards. And I don't know how Maddox responds and how he's going to grow from this, but maybe that's Spencer's way of giving him the response that he needs. Maybe he needs a little bit of reassurance for growth, but no doubt about it, not a great performance. He did spend a lot of time talking about the tackling, which I thought was interesting. Boise State tackled well for most of this game, and it really came down to bad tackling on 2 or 3 plays, right? And again, it's Jadarian Price, it's Jeremiah Love. You're talking about 2 of the best backs in the entire country.
of the issues I saw, look, tackling wasn't great, but I don't think that's the major issue. I do think at the end of the day, Maddox was probably a bigger part of the issues for this game than just the tackling here. What else do we got here? We got the lateral saying the only thing I want more on is that he said he coaches in practice but lets it rip in the game, let them play. Seems like we need more pulling people to the side and coaching during the game, not just hype and clapping and attaboys. And look, I'll say this, there were a couple moments in that game where it seemed like Spencer, when guys committed penalties or whatnot, pulling them off the field and having a talk with them. So I don't know if that's the truest thing. Ryan says QB been a major issue. 3 have left the program. Current isn't doing enough to win big games. Down at the bottom there with Ryan. Look, I'll say this, Ryan. When you say 3 have left the program, I mean, what 3 are you talking about? And what 3 are those doing elsewhere, right? It's not like Malachi Nelson is lighting it up at UTEP. I understand the Taylon Green part of this, but look, Taylon Green also got benched by Andy Avalos, right? It wasn't like Spencer was the one who put Maddox up in the starting job, and he wasn't the one who created that issue. So, I mean, really, since Spencer has taken over the program, it's been Maddox Madsen, and yeah, Malachi Nelson transferred, and look, the way he's played at UTEP relative to, I know today wasn't great, but it's still been a step up from what we've seen from Malachi Nelson. Grant Teton says, bring back Taylon Green. Avalos bullied him out of the program. Yeah, I don't know if that's an option. I'm sure if that was a possibility, that would be the ideal situation, but no doubt about it. Going up a little further, we got Luis saying Madsen is not Kellen Moore, not even close. And look, I think this is, if I can sound off on Bronco Nation, which we love you guys, we love you supporting. I'm an alumni, I'm part of it. But I think the issue with Bronco Nation when it comes to quarterback play is that Kellen Moore has become the standard instead of the pantheon. Kellen Moore is the greatest quarterback to ever play for Boise State, arguably the greatest quarterback to ever play college football. 50 wins, 3 losses, all 3 losses because of kicking issues. You're not going to find quarterbacks like that pretty much ever. It's just not going to happen very often, especially at a G5 where Boise State is. And so I think if your comparison is, okay, is this guy going to be Kellen Moore, you're never going to be happy with your quarterback play. And we saw that not too long ago. We saw that not too long ago with Brett Rippon, who was arguably the second best quarterback in Boise State history. And fans, he wasn't Kellen, so people weren't happy. Got a comment from BJ saying, Danielson, we didn't lose that game tonight because Maddox Madsen had some interceptions. Yeah, how do you guys feel about that? Was the issue the interceptions? Were there bigger issues? And look, objectively, I think Spencer's right. You don't lose a game because of one player and one player's performance. But I'll say this, it certainly didn't help. The interceptions didn't help the team win. They definitely did not contribute to winning. So keep getting your comments into the ICCU chat here on the Jackson's postgame show. Got a lot of you guys in here still chalking. It's one of the great things about these early games, right? You don't feel like you got to rush to bed. We can really sit and stew in this game. Get your comments in, get your takes off, all of those things. So we'll see. BSU fan saying, I'm asking for next year's recruiting quarterback. Looking forward to the basketball season. 2 great comments there. Go subscribe to Bronco Nation News on 247 Sports. You can learn all about Boise State. They've got 2 quarterback commits coming in as of now, Jackson Taylor, and I think it's Tayson Bettinger. Don't quote me on that. And then, basketball season just around the corner. We've already got our first preview article up. So make sure to go subscribe on Bronco Nation News, part of the new 247 Sports family. Going down here, we've got Sick Modern saying Notre Dame was flat out better, had to play near perfect. Look, and I think that's fair, and I think that's probably what's getting lost a little bit here. Notre Dame's a really good football team, and Notre Dame didn't play perfect, but Boise State was going to have to be pretty much perfect tonight to beat them, or I guess today to beat them. They didn't do that. But Notre Dame's a really good football team. That's a lot better football team than you're going to see in Mountain West play. Mike Sanford mentioned San Diego State. San Diego State's probably not beating Notre Dame either, right? So as much bad as there was today, there is still some positive to be had here. The lateral saying I was up at 2:30 a.m. to watch from Vietnam. Wow, that's a trooper. That's good for you, man. Good for you staying up, or I guess getting up to watch the Broncos. And Unfortunate that couldn't have been a better result. Maui Snowtech saying we needed more quick slants and stuff. A couple plays where he's looking at an open receiver and then pulled the ball and scrambled out of pocket, missing the chance. Yeah, and I think that's what was so frustrating, confusing about Madsen's performance today. It wasn't just one issue coming up over and over again. It was on the interception of Latrell Caples. He's staring down Latrell Caples. He's not open and throws it anyway. It just sits on his first read and then comes back next drive. It's 4th and 2. His first read is Latrell Caples, who's wide open in the flats, but comes off of him way too quickly to try to get Matt Wagner over the middle. Just a lot of separate issues compounding. And I think Mike Sanford said it best, man. The moment just seemed too big for him. He seemed panicked. It was not a good performance for Maddox Madsen. And look, we've said it a few times, and I'll continue to come back for it. If you're new in the chat, this will be your first time hearing it. But I think at this point, Maddox Madsen, he's a great Mountain West quarterback. If he is your quarterback and you've got a good team around him, you absolutely have the capability to win a Mountain West championship and go to the playoff. But you're probably not beating these top-level competitions because, again, we've seen 4 games now against P4 and P4-esque opponents, if you include USF, and all 4 games were not good, right? So at some point, I think that might just be the story on Maddox Madsen, which is fine. You can win a game with there's a term called bus driver, right? Like if you've got a good team, you got Cage Casey, Ashton Genty, he can drive the bus and get you to where you need to go, but he's not a fighter pilot. You know, he might not be a Brett Rippon. He might not be a Kellen Moore, one of those top level guys. Going up here, we've got Grand Teton saying Madsen is a liability. We won't win many games with him as quarterback. I mean, no, that's just not true. I mean, you know, they won 12 games last year. They've already won 3 with him this year without Genty. You know, I don't think he's a bad quarterback. I think, you know, he is what he is at this point. And then further on down, Big Killa saying Snowtech, we just have better talent in all positions. Oh, maybe that's a Notre Dame fan saying that they've got better talent at all positions. So now I want to talk about this. Grand Teton's also saying we haven't beat a P4 team since 2019. Disgusting. And that's been a lot of talk on Twitter, on the message boards. Boise State used to be, you know, David knocking off Goliath, and it hasn't been the case in recent years. But if you start to, one thing I've come back to is you go back and think about this. 2025 Notre Dame, top 10 team. I mean, we'll see where they finish at the end of the year, but this preseason top 10 team, they've looked like a top 10 team most of the season. You go back last year, you played an Oregon team who went 13-0, wins the Big Ten championship, 1 seed in the entire country, and you come within a field goal of beating them. Go back to 2023, you get a Washington team who plays for a national championship. 2022, a little bit of a lost season, but you lose to Oregon State in that year. Go back another year to 2021. I believe that was the Oklahoma State loss. Oklahoma State ends up going to the Fiesta Bowl and I believe winning the Big 12 championship that year. Or no, came up a game short of the playoff that year. They lose by 1 yard in the Big 12 championship, still go to the Fiesta Bowl. So I think it's a combination of, yes, they have not beaten any P5 teams since 2019. The P5 team they also got in 2019 was Florida State, who went 5-7 that year. It's a lot easier to beat P4 teams when you're getting the bad ones. There was a Fresno State team a couple years ago who they picked up 2 wins over Purdue and Arizona State in non-conference play, and it was like 2 P4 wins, and Purdue and Arizona State, neither of them went to a bowl, right? So I think it is a case of you get some really bad draws along the way, a little bit of bad luck, and the standard's fallen a little bit. This isn't, a top 10 team in the country like it may have been in the Kellen Moore era. But we'll see what happens going forwards, Next year, it's another matchup with Oregon. I don't think Oregon's getting any worse, so we'll have to look out into the future and see how long until Boise can get that next P4 win, because it's certainly been a little bit here. Buzzy Fuzz saying this media push for Madsen is obvious. I don't know what the media push for it is. He's the starting quarterback, and I think for the most part the media has been, fair about him. Moving on up here, we've got, got people talking about the wins over Air Force and an FCS school. I mean, yeah, that's the schedule in front of you, right? Like that, it is what it is, and you're going to beat who you can beat at the end of the day. And look, App State beat Oregon State today. They went and got a win against a future Pac-12 opponent. Oregon State's not good at all, but they got a win over a Pac-12 opponent. So, got some more. Continue to get your comments. Continue to get your thoughts coming in here. I believe we've got an interview with Latrell Caples pulled up and ready to go. Maybe not, so we'll hold on that in a little bit. We've got one with Jaden Virgin Morgan pulled up. So let's hear from Jaden Virgin Morgan. Continue to get your thoughts and comments in. We'll be hanging out for a little bit longer here at Uncle Bob's Pizza, chatting with you guys and talking through Boise State, the season, Notre Dame, what's next? You know, the sky is falling before cooler heads probably prevail later in the week. But let's hear from Jaden Virgin Morgan on his thoughts after the loss.
So we're good. Okay, questions for Jaden. Jaden, what's the most frustrating part about that game?
You know, just seeing the work that we put in through the week and knowing that it didn't come out to the way that we wanted to. But, you know, just being able to know that we have a lot to work on and being able to look back at the film and get better next week and continue to grow.
That first drive, they come right down the field, but to stop them on 4th and goal and get that momentum. I mean, how big was that early? And do you feel overall like the defense played good enough for you guys to win this game?
Yeah, that first 4th down stop was huge. I think being able to do that brought us a lot of momentum. But as a defense, I think we played very well, and I think we played at an elite level. But there's a lot of things that we need to fix, and there's a lot of things that we will fix in the next week.
Those penalties, kind of sometimes kept drives alive. Offensively they hurt you guys as well. Just what did you see on the penalties? What was happening there?
I think it's just being disciplined to do your job and do your 111th. Just being able to not hurt yourself. Coach D talks a lot about sins, self-inflicted negatives, and being able to take those away from the game helps you out a lot and helps you win the game.
BJ brought up that first drive, and then you guys had another 4th down stop later in the half. Just what's the confidence of the defense on those plays?
Yeah, being able to know that we can stop them on a 4th down, and it's huge. It's huge to. It's counted as a turnover in our book, so being able to get a turnover on that is, especially on a 4th down, is huge for us.
Notre Dame has the kind of reputation of being one of the best teams in the country every year. Now that you've played against them, maybe what is it about them that makes them so difficult to beat?
I think just being able to play an elite team like Notre Dame was an awesome opportunity for us. I think it's just it showed that we can play against a team like that, though we didn't have the outcome that we wanted. But I think some things that make them such an elite team is just their discipline and how they get to the ball on defense as well as offense. Just the discipline that goes offense and defense as well as special teams.
How frustrating are the tackling issues?
That's just something that we worked through the week, and seeing that it didn't come to the exact thing that we wanted is a little frustrating, but knowing that we can fix that and knowing we have the chance to fix it is very important.
Jaden, I know as a leader this loss hurts, and I know you guys think you probably could have won this game. As a leader on this team, what do you tell the other guys in the locker room? There's still a whole lot of season left.
Yeah, just like you said, there is still a whole lot of season left. It didn't come out the way that we wanted, and that hurts. It hurts all of us, but being able to get back with the guys and make sure that they all know that the season isn't over, and we're only 5 weeks in or 6 weeks in, and we have a lot of season left, and we have everything ahead of us still.
Coach talks a lot about looking at the film, and I know you guys did that in preparation for this game as well. Was there anything that Notre Dame did today that surprised you guys, caught you off guard, anything like that?
There's nothing that they did that caught us off guard. We practiced for exactly what they had for us, and we just didn't play to the exact level that we needed to play for.
It's hard to look at positives when you lose, but you guys gave the offense a couple of big-time chances in the first half. So how do you just build off of that? If you want to take that as a positive, how do you build on that for the rest of the season?
Yeah, I think just it starts with not pointing fingers. We did give them a lot of opportunities, and they weren't able to fully take advantage of those, but we can't start pointing fingers because that's when teams start to break down. So being able to bring the offense up and let them know that we are going to get them the ball back no matter what team we play, no matter what game we're in, and just continue to build into them and continue to build the offense to be a better offense for sure.
Big picture-wise, it was a non-conference game. You're 1-0 in conference. You get back into that now. That goal's still attainable. I know the loss hurts, but how do you guys kind of refocus it with what's a lot of over half the season still left?
Yeah, I think just looking back at this game, seeing the things that we need to fix, and then just going to the next week being 1-0. We're going back into conference, which is super exciting. So just being able to see that we have a lot of season left, and we're going into conference, so super excited.
Talked a lot about penalties. Was there anything that Notre Dame was doing that maybe was making you guys commit penalties that maybe you wouldn't usually do?
I don't believe so.
Yes.
All right, there you have it. Jaden Virgin Morgan giving his thoughts post game. And yeah, I agree with a lot of the analysis he had. He said that he felt like they played a good game. They played at a high level against a good opponent. And, if you've been sticking around the whole time, it's going to sound, we've been saying it ad nauseum. But yeah, I think the defense played well. Defense played well enough to win, no doubt about it. Very similar outcome to the USF game. Defense played well, and offense didn't do what they needed to do to win. Got a comment here from Linda that I think should be pointed out too. Yeah, special teams are way better. The special teams were not an issue today. They got a decent return off of a special teams play that was really just two of your coverage guys slipping, not having the right cleats in there. But other than that, you blocked a kick. Didn't have any issues on kickoff. Didn't get any returns today, which you'd obviously like to see. It wasn't an explosive, but definitely special teams have not been an issue, especially compared to what they had last year. So, yeah, Jaden Virgin Morgan with some good thoughts there. And I think if you're a fan looking forward, spinning this forward, you look at Mountain West play, and one thing I keep coming back to is there's not a team of USF's caliber. There's not a team of Notre Dame's caliber in the Mountain West this year, especially in terms of body types. There's not. There's some interesting teams. We'll see UNLV. I think they're playing against Wyoming right now. And last I saw, I believe they were up 17-3. I believe that's still the score. But UNLV's defense has looked atrocious this year. They nearly lost to Idaho State, right? Imagine coming in here instead of after a loss, by the spread to Notre Dame, you come in here and Boise State barely beats Idaho State, and how different the conversations would look there. Team like San Diego State, yes, they've looked good in moments. They also got destroyed by a Wazoo team who lost by 50 to North Texas. Like San Diego State has a lot of vulnerabilities as well on that team. I've seen some people talk about Utah State. Utah State, they've looked decent, but a lot of their sort of praise has been big performance. Losses like what you just saw Boise State have against SEC teams. It's not like Utah State's going out there and beating Texas A&M or beating Vanderbilt. They're losing by 20 or 30 points as well. So I think that the Mountain West as a whole is still fairly down, and I think it's going to be pretty gettable for Boise State. Zero doubt about it. I think that you get New Mexico this coming Saturday. It's going to be a winnable game. Boise State's probably going to be a 14 to 17 point favorite, and that's a game that they should win. Then you get UNLV again at home the following week. It's a program that you've got the best of them in recent year, beating them 3 times already in the past 2 seasons. So we'll see if they're able to do it again. But I think that some of the reactions, and this is maybe I'm just too positive, too optimistic, but I think some of the comments and thoughts that season's over, 6-6, not going to win the Mountain West. I think this team can still go 10-2, can still win the Mountain West, and even if it's 9-3, I think there's a good chance that this team is playing for the Mountain West Championship. And look, it's not what Boise State fans want to hear, but team lost a lot of pieces, and luckily the Mountain West isn't very good. Even in a down year, Boise State should be able to compete for and win the Mountain West, zero doubt about it. But there were going to be questions about how do you replace a guy like Ashton Genty? How do you replace guys at the nickel like Alexander Tubner, Rodney Robinson, Shea Oladipo? How do you replace an Ahmed Hassanin who 0 sacks tonight? The pass rush got some pressure, but 0 sacks after having 55 sacks last season. These were going to be big losses, and I think what we've seen so far is that this is not a playoff team, at least the way that they're playing right now. Going to need to be a lot of growth to get there. So you heard what Spencer Danielson said. You heard what Jaden Virgin Morgan said. Let's hear what Latrell Caples had to say, who led the Broncos with 6 catches today, had a solid performance, and see what he said post-game.
Everybody good? Yeah. Latrell, how disappointing is that one?
Pretty disappointing. You go in every game hoping to win. Any loss is disappointing, but we got a chance to take down a top-ranked team. And you don't get it done. Yeah, pretty disappointed. So, but all we can do is put our head down, get ready for next week, get back to work.
You look at some of the mistakes, the turnovers, the penalties. Just how much does that kind of compound the frustration? It's really been the same story every week. Even when we win, we have penalties, and we try to fix them every week. But we have to take a huge step, a way bigger step. We got to try harder to fix those things.
The penalties come up every week, and we did it again today. We cost us a lot of hidden yardage, and just got to be able to fix those mistakes.
You seemed questionable at best when they called you for that, and that obviously hurt you guys were, I think, in the red zone or close to it at that point. How key was that swing there? Because then you ended up having to punt.
Thought it was pretty big, huge explosive by Wags on that, and then just trying to play hard, and I end up getting a penalty. Ref called it, so I got to be better with my techniques and my fundamentals. That one's on me. I got to play call back.
Talk about being confident, about being able to win this game. What did Notre Dame do today that made it so tough to beat them?
Notre Dame played their tails off. They had a great defensive scheme. I mean, they ran a lot of man. I feel like we did a good job getting open. They got some pressure back there. Maddox running a lot. But I feel like a lot of mistakes were on us too. Our penalties and our turnovers. I mean, that's on us. That's really nothing they were doing. It was just us getting in our own way.
I guess as a player, like you mentioned the man defense, and so did your coach. Like, what is it about that man defense that makes it so tough to get over?
Well, one, I mean, if they're on you fast and you got a certain type of route, I mean, some certain type of man press, it's harder to get open on your route. And two, I mean, you only get flags if the ball's getting thrown to you. So, I mean, it's a lot of handsiness going on, having the quarterback getting off you, but ultimately it comes down to us just winning our one-on-ones and playing better at receiver.
6 offensive drives for you guys in the second half. 5 of them you got into Notre Dame territory. One of them, the other one, you were really close to midfield. Just what was going on with not being able to finish those drives?
Like you said, we were turning the ball over, being careless with the ball, obviously trying to fish too hard for a play maybe, or somebody not doing the right thing. I mean, it's a lot. You can go back and say what those are the reason of those turnovers, but ultimately it just comes down to us just being able to take care of the ball, like know that the ball is the team and the team is the ball. Like we have to be able to take care of the ball.
I know it's a tough game for Madison out there. As a leader on this team, what do you tell your quarterback after a night like this? I know that's frustrating.
Tell him that it's not all his fault. When those plays don't make the whole game. I mean, it's a team sport. You made mistakes. I made mistakes. The guy to the left or right of us all made mistakes. So it's not all on him. He has another week to get better. It's not the end of the world. We have plenty of games left.
Maddox was rolling out a lot, who's been chasing out the pocket a lot. Just how difficult does that make it for you and the rest of the receivers, just trying to get open to make a play for him?
I mean, protection is, we always say protection is an 11-man job. It's not all just the offensive line. So, I mean, whether that's we speed our routes up or we just do quicker sets or whatever we have to do, but it definitely makes it tougher when we barely finish our route and quarterback and it's scramble drill. So that makes it tougher, but all we can do is what we can do, and that's continue to run our routes hard and try to get the ball, try to get open.
Looking at film coming into this game, was there a specific area of the Notre Dame defense that you guys thought that you'd be able to exploit and that didn't happen?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like a lot of times we exploited things, but maybe here and there we didn't have time, or like we just knew they were going to be a man, and everything we knew they were going to do, they were going to do it for pretty much. It was just we didn't execute, if I'm being honest.
Moving forward, I mean, it was a non-conference game. You go back into conference play now, still playing for that goal. I mean, how do you kind of regroup here and then reset, kind of your goals for the rest of the season?
Yeah, I mean, Coach D talked about it too. This does not make the break the season. Everything's still on the table. We still can go three-peat. We have a conference opponent next week, like you said. I mean, just knowing it's like we can't lose anymore. We know we can't lose anymore. We won't lose anymore. So we'll be able to just go out there and just attack every day. That's all we can do is put our head down and attack and get ready for New Mexico.
Phil Spencer said a number of times after the game that you guys haven't won calling games like this recently, and he said that's on him. What do you guys feel like you need to do to win games like this, I guess? And I mean, college football is a resource battle too, right? Or a resource race. And there's schools out there with a lot of resources, but like, what do you have to do to win games like this?
One, I would say we have to step up as leaders, all of us. Obviously, it's something that we're not getting across. Little details are slipping. So I feel like, one, we have to step up as leaders and preach the tradition and the culture of this program. Honestly, that's all I want to say. We got to put it on us as players. That's just something we have to improve on.
Latrell, come Monday morning, you talked about fixing the penalties, right? But as a leader, what's the message coming from you Monday morning come practice?
I would say, I mean, we got another week to be great. We got another week to get our win back. My message would be to keep being yourself and keep playing fast, keep playing smart, and we just got to keep playing together and physical, because at the end of the day, that's going to win us football games if we just continue to put one foot in front of the other and work every day. I mean, that's all we can do, but we have to, I will also say we have to heighten our focus going into this week, because it's obviously not there if we just keep making these little mistakes. So I feel like we need to heighten our focus and just step up as leaders and really take control.
All right, there you have it. Latrell Caples, his post-game thoughts. A lot of just looking forward. You know, Boise State still have everything in front of them, still a chance to three-peat, and you know your margins for error pretty much zero now. Don't have a lot of opportunities, especially if the goal is to continue to make the playoff. But everything with the Mountain West still at hand. So continue to get your thoughts, your comments into the ICCU post-game chat here on the Jackson's post-game show. We appreciate you guys hanging out with us here. Been going for hour 45, hour 50 now. We've been rolling viewership, comments. You guys have been great. Appreciate you guys rolling with me. Obviously a little bit different. Typically would have BJ on at some point here, but stadium rules at Notre Dame, they don't allow any broadcasting directly from the stadium. That's why pregame, postgame, all of it had to be here from Uncle Bob. So this isn't going to be a norm going forward, just some weird clunky rules that Notre Dame has decided to implement. But if you haven't already, check out Bronco Nation News at 247 Sports, our new home. It's been a really great partnership. Got tons of stories, tons of coverage up. We'll have a bunch right after this game. We've got Mike Prater columns coming every week or so, multiple a week, I should even say. Got online coverage, video interviews, tons of recruiting news. There's no better place to follow along for recruiting news. And we'll even have BJ. Sounds like he's going to be going to the Raiders-Colts game tomorrow, get an interview with Ashton Genty, talk a little bit about the man, the myth, the man that I think a lot of Bronco Nation misses after a game like this, Ashton Genty. But yeah, man, all things considered, it's a tough loss, no doubt about it, against a good football team. Obviously, you were hoping for a better result, but again, there's some things to build on. There are some things to build on here without a doubt. The fact that you're minus 1% in success rate, that's an encouraging sign. It really is. It shows down to down, you're not that far off from Notre Dame. The issue really comes back again to the lack of explosive plays, 0 in the running game, just 2 in the pass game. You need to find a way to be more explosive as an offense. You're doing a good job doing the little things, getting the chunks. You have to find easy buttons, find the big 30, 40, 50-yard chunk plays. But you know, with that said, you more or less stopped Notre Dame, especially through the air. Again, I'll come back to it. The secondary played well. For all the people who in past post-game shows have talked about DeMario Warren and wanted his head, secondary played well, especially in the explosive department. They had a good game against one of the best, most explosive offenses in the country. They did give up 3 explosive runs, which I do think is an issue. It's quietly an issue that I feel like the fan base hasn't quite caught on to yet, but 10% explosive rush play rate allowed coming into this game, they were dead last in the nation in explosive rush rate allowed. Talk about a tongue twister there. Nobody in the country was giving up more big-time runs than Boise State's defense. It's becoming a consistent issue. There's issues to fix at linebacker and at safety, where when teams are able to break through the second level, there's just nobody there. And they were able to do that. Now, granted, a couple of that today was some bad tackling, and part of that is you tip your cap to Jadarian Price and Jeremiah Love. You know, when Ashton Genty was breaking 1 billion tackles last year, I don't think Boise State fans sat back and said, well, you know, the other team's having clear tackling issues. No, you tip your hat to Ashton Genty, and I think in some cases tonight you tip your hat to Jeremiah Love and Jadarian Price, who were excellent. They were absolutely excellent for Notre Dame. One interesting note I did have here, I've got some of the advanced data pulled up, and how fumbles happen based on PBUs, how many points of luck was added via turnovers. And when it says luck, what that means is essentially for every 3 pass breakups, you'd expect to have 1 interception. So if a team has 0 pass breakups, but 19.5 points of turnover luck for Notre Dame. Not to say that's not an area that Boise State doesn't need to grow in, but it really does come down to the fact that those turnovers, those Maddox Madsen interceptions, really killed the Broncos today. No 2 ways about it. The offense moved the ball fairly well. They weren't explosive, but ultimately those turnovers are what ended up killing the Broncos. And look, like we said earlier, that's going to be the issue going forwards for that's going to be the topic of conversation for the Broncos is Maddox Madsen. His performance, his play. Can he be the guy? Can he step up in big moments and help Boise State, get back to the playoff? Just going through some more comments here. We got Double O'Neill says Boise's still square in the G5 hunt. Don't even pretend like they're not. Look, it's a long shot. They're not out of it. Like I said, probably 1 or 2% chance to get there. But the hard thing is when you lose in blowout fashion to USF, that gives the American a leg up right away. Combine that with the fact that the Mountain West really hasn't been that good in non-conference play. Air Force loses to Navy today. If you're not picking up those marquee wins out of non-conference, it means you're not going to have the marquee opponents to beat. At this point, if Boise State's to have any shot, you probably need to pray for a 3-loss American champ, which is certainly possible. Certainly possible. There's a lot of good teams that could beat each other up in that league, but probably need a 3-loss American champ, and you need to run the table, and probably need UNLV to be, like last year, unbeaten or close to it when you play them. Scrolling down a little bit, Ben Welch, the offensive line had no push, even on the long run. One stat that I had pulled up that I didn't get to mention earlier, anybody in here know how many tackles for loss Notre Dame had on run plays tonight? How many times they got in the backfield and stopped Boise State running backs? 0. 0 times. All of their tackles for loss came on pass plays, on sacks. The offensive line, I thought, actually did a pretty good job. They got push. They didn't, Notre Dame's got an elite front seven. And for them to come out of this game with zero tackles for loss in the run game, I think the offensive line actually did have a pretty strong game. And again, even you look at the 4 sacks, I thought more of the sacks were an issue of Maddox Madsen than they were the offensive line in a lot of cases tonight. I pointed out the last one where Matoyer does a good job of pushing his man deep, but Maddox floats deep instead of stepping up into the pocket. It wasn't perfect, but I thought for the most part when you're playing, Notre Dame, that's the best front you're going to play all year, and Boise State offensive line, I thought did a pretty decent job. Maui Snowtech saying running wasn't terrible, around 4 yards per run, which is first downs all day. Yeah, I think sack adjusted, Boise State was at 4.5 yards per carry. So the running game worked, and that's without any explosives. It wasn't like they had one 80-yard run, which ended up throwing that out. I thought they did a pretty good job in that facet. So, what else do we got here? The American might eat itself from Sick Modern up here. The American might eat itself, but will Boise win out? Tall task. We'll see. Stay tuned. We'll on Bronco Nation Nudes on our boards as well as on Twitter. I'll post the win probability update. I know the odds of winning out after this game will probably sit like 10 to 20%, somewhere in that range, which is certainly doable. But we'll see about it. So all in all, I think it's a tough loss. You obviously love to win, and even if you don't win, you at least want it to be a game like Oregon last year where you're right there at the end. You show yourselves well and kind of prove to the country, hey, we are in this top tier of teams, top 5, top 10. But wasn't the case. Boise State falls 28-7. They move to 3-2 on the season. Still a chance to win the Mountain West and accomplish all those goals. But as Jennifer Couture says, one game at a time. It's exactly right. Boise State got New Mexico coming up this Saturday. Boise State and Bronco Nation News will be live from the James for the pregame show, postgame show for all of your Boise State coverage. We'll be there covering it. Be sure to subscribe at 247 Sports to Bronco Nation News. We'll have lots of talk about this game, PFF grades, snap counts, preview. We'll have basketball talk. Basketball quietly 2 weeks away. 2 weeks away from Boise State and Idaho going at it on the hardwood once again in an exhibition game. So basketball season's right around the corner. October, November, it gets busy for us here at Bronco Nation News trying to cover everything basketball, everything football. But we do it because we love you guys and we love the support that you guys have. So thank you all so much for joining the Jackson's Postgame Show. Be sure to continue to stick around and continue to read everything from BJ Rains, from Chris Van Sickle, from myself, from Mike Prater. Continue to read all the stuff that we've got out there. Thanks again to Markel Reed for joining us, to Mike Sanford for joining us. And for you guys who love BJ, our fearless leader here at Bronco Nation News. He'll be back on Monday with Brad Bedell to talk about the game, talk about the loss, to get his insights on the matchup. But 28-7, Boise State falls to Notre Dame, moves to 3-2 on the season. We'll see what comes next for the Broncos. But for today, I'm Nathan Carroll. This has been Bronco Nation News. Check it out. Go to Jackson. Support the sponsors. This has been Bronco Nation News post-game show. Thank you very much.
And final blade of grass. Done. And done. Who knew it'd take 2,007 man-hours to paint 47,962,053 blades of grass? Smells like game day. Whoa, it's not dry yet.
Bronco fans, the new Boise State trading cards are here, and you can only get them at Jackson's.
Start collecting them today.
Jackson's, let's go!